All right, it looks like it's slowing down. So I'll just go ahead and introduce and thank everyone for coming. I'm Marie Poloni. I work at the Pittsburgh Technology Council. I'm the Director of Talent Attraction and STEM Development Initiatives. So I get to work on all of our hiring initiatives for all of our employer members, our job seekers, our college students, and then I also get to work on our STEM initiatives and all of our workforce development initiatives too. So really just trying to create that pathway from middle school on up through connecting industry and folks looking for jobs or looking for pathways. We have Carrie Pfeiffer here today, and she is from Landis Consulting Group. They are a sponsor of the Hire Up this year. And she is, oh, thank you. She is going to be giving an extra prep session here just about how to present yourself, any tips and tricks for your LinkedIn, for your resume. I've had the privilege of going through a couple of these and I learn something new every single time. It does not matter how long you've been in this business or looking for a job or different conversations. It's just great to get so much different input. So Carrie, I really appreciate you coming today. I will be monitoring the chat. Please feel free to use it. If you have questions, I can interrupt Carrie with important questions. We can save questions until the end, whatever makes sense, but utilize that chat. And then this morning, all of you should have received an email from me just with extra resources on actually navigating through the Hire Up tomorrow. How to utilize not only the chat, but the face-to-face with the employers. I went through the jobs over the weekend that they posted. There's some really exciting opportunities coming from these employers tomorrow. So thank you for coming, and I definitely wish you all the best. I will hand it over to Carrie.
Hi, good morning, everyone. As Marie had mentioned, I'm Carrie Pfeiffer. I am a co-founder of Landis Consulting Group. We are an IT staffing and consulting firm in Monroeville, partner and work with companies all throughout the greater Pittsburgh area. I actually co-founded the company with my sister, Kelly Feddick. So just has been just a great few years. We officially kicked off about 4.5 years ago. A little bit about myself. I have been in the technology staffing industry for a little over 10 years. So had started my career out in the Lehigh Valley, New York, New Jersey area, but born and raised in Pittsburgh. So we decided to come back here. So really looking forward to talking to you a bit about just ways to update resumes, LinkedIn profiles, interview tips, but definitely want to make this interactive too. So as Marie had mentioned, any questions you have, just pop them in the chat box. We can answer them throughout the presentation or even at the end. So looking forward to it. So I guess we'll get things started. Go here. Not going through. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, resume enhancements, LinkedIn profiles, interview tips and coaching, virtual interviews. Obviously with COVID, things have dramatically changed and the in-person interviews is not as relevant as they once were. We're going to talk through networking and also optimizing your online brand. All right, so resume do's and don'ts. I'm sure a lot of you have probably worked with a lot of different recruiters. There's a lot of different opinions. So this is kind of like my do's and don'ts. So don't feel like you have to take everything to heart here. But when I'm looking at resumes and we are working with a lot of the different employers throughout the region, we get a good handle on like what they like to see, what they don't like to see. So that's where a lot of my information comes from as well, just kind of getting feedback from active managers and hiring managers. So a lot of the do's are have a clean format. You want to have same fonts, same sizes. You want to make sure the alignment's accurate, specifically on the bullet points. A lot of times you might see that some of them are indented differently. You always want to make it sharp and clean. Same with spacing. You need to make it look pretty, essentially. Font sizes, of course, some areas can be different. I always like to bold and make the title, company name, location, dates, everything a little bit bigger, and then kind of follow that formatting throughout the entire resume. to hit on that. So you always want to include your specific title. You want to include the company that you were at, the location, and dates. So the dates, I'm very big on wanting to see the month and the year. I don't think you need to have like, you know, March 1st of 2020. I would just recommend having the month and year. Totally okay if there's a gap, like if you ended a job in, you know, February and you didn't start the next one until May, not a big deal. I would still list that. That's not a huge gap. That we'll cover that later too, but just my opinion there. And then as far as just what to list, I am a big advocate on listing out technical skills in the beginning. So obviously in Tech Council, I'm sure most of the audience here is somewhat techie. So I always say if you have the top, you know, skill section, and then you can list out the different things that you've touched. So if you're a systems engineer, you can type in systems engineering and then put, you know, Microsoft servers, Active Directory, Exchange, virtualization, the cloud, pretty much all the buzzwords. It's always good to add a lot of that information. So the person viewing your resume, when they first look at what your skill set is, it's there bold in the very beginning. And then I would go into listing out your experience under that. So you'll have, you know, the name, title, everything that you do, and then list out just projects that you've worked on, technologies that you've touched, your involvement in projects, and what size of project, what size of teams you worked on, pretty much the full scope of what you've done on your day-to-day and your accomplishments, what you're proud of. In my opinion, don't undersell yourself. If you have, you know, years of experience and you need to go on to that second page, perfectly fine. I'm pro more information, the better. We can always tailor your resume around to it to shorten it up if needed, but you don't want to not put information on just because you're trying to get as much information as you possibly can on a one-page resume. I'm sure a lot of people know finding a job is a job. It's, you know, a lot of work. So when you are applying to specific positions, I do recommend tailoring your resume to specific jobs. And that could be something as simple as just moving around your bullet points. Like if you're looking at a specific job description with different requirements, take a look at what their must have skill sets are. And if you have that experience, if it's not on your resume, absolutely list it. Because it could be something as, you know, small as managing a team of 5 people that you might have just had, you know, managing or leading a project or something. You always just want to make it very apparent what you've done and how it relates to the opening that you're interested in. To talk through the don'ts of resumes, always double, triple, quadruple check for any grammar issues, any typos. A lot of times you also, if you are applying to positions, I had said tailor it to said description, but you never want to just copy and paste off of what a job description has and then put it on your resume. It makes you look a little bit lazy. You want to kind of highlight your experience, but not take it off of a job description. You want to put it down exactly how you, the experience that you've gained and how you'd like to portray that. I am pro no colors on resumes. I'm more of just keep the font black. It's totally okay if you have like a little bit of colors, but a lot of times whenever we are working with customers, and employers will just kind of make everything black just to keep it kind of conformed. Pictures, I am not a fan of you putting your picture on a resume. I think it depends on what industry you're in. A lot of times when I do see it, it's more like higher level executive roles that people tend to put their pictures on. But that's something, again, don't take with a grain of salt. If you really want to do it, perfectly fine. I'm just, I choose not to have them on there. And hiding gaps of employment. It's a tricky situation that a lot of people aren't sure how to portray that. I look at it as it's going to come up. A lot of times companies may may want to do different like employment background checks and stuff. So you always just have to be very careful because you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you might not have accurate dates to what you're telling your employer. You want to make sure everything aligns. So with that, I would say if you were out for a few months, again, list the dates. If you were out for a year, you can even put something on your resume that just says, you know, from 2019 to 2020, you know, unemployed or stay-at-home parent or taking care of a family member, whatever it is, you can put it on there if you want, or just be ready to talk about it. There's no sense in trying to hide anything. We're all human, you know, sometimes people aren't, you don't have to have a, you know, perfect track record of working every single month of your life. I recommend taking time off if you can. So those are the do's and don'ts. And I think we do have a question, right, Marie?
Yes. So one question from Rachel, what do you think about talking about yourself in the third person versus the first person on a resume?
That is an interesting question. I personally feel that it's better to just keep it as first person. Like when you're talking, like I like have accomplished so and so. Like I recommend not really using like your name or anything. Like I like it more straight to the point. Pull it in bullet point form and just hit each just like point of your resume of how you want to portray it. But again, there's no wrong answer.
That's a great question though. So yes, using I's and versus pronouns. Okay, carry on.
Okay, so LinkedIn profile and resumes. Definitely recommend having both. How I look at it, we'll hit resume first just because that's kind of a quick recap of what we just talked about. Resume showcases your experience in your career, highlights your skill sets, just gives a really good deep explanation on your experience, projects, technologies you've touched. And a lot of times, I mean, 9 times out of 10, if you're going to be applying to a job, you need a resume. So of course, I think a resume, if you're a job seeker, absolutely non-negotiable must have. And then take that to LinkedIn. So LinkedIn now, it's just has evolved so much. It's basically a working active resume. If you're a passive job seeker, if you're an active job seeker, if you aren't even a job seeker, you may get contacted by a recruiter on an opportunity that you may never have known of that could be just a great career move for you. So I always look at LinkedIn as you can have such good information out there. It's a professional site. There's no reason not to showcase your skill set on there as well. And it can connect you to a lot of people that you might otherwise not have known. It increases your online presence. It enables you to engage with your network, connect with like-minded people in the industry, or and they don't even have to be local either. Like I find that I've connected with a lot of different recruiters, talent acquisition people, like just, people that are in the same industry as I, and they're all over the US. I love talking to them. I love pinging ideas off of them, seeing what they do. And a lot of times they become kind of just professional friends in a sense too, where, hey, if something different has come up, you can ask, hey, what do you do in this type of situation? And it's just nice to have a group of people behind you that know what you're doing, and you have them to rely on. I also, very big important, I know I talked about not having a picture on your resume. I highly, highly recommend having a professional picture on your LinkedIn profile. That we'll kind of talk about that too, just in optimizing yourself online and your brand. I'm not saying that you have to go out and get a professional photo done. Just make sure you're very aware of what your picture looks like. You don't want to be, in a party setting at a bar and just, looking a little bit unprofessional. But I would say that it's definitely good to have. It makes you more relatable. You can see your face. You just want to connect with people that you know. So that would be my suggestion there. All right. Interview tips and tricks. So this is a loaded slide as well, and we'll talk about virtual. I have a slide on virtual interviews too, but whether you're meeting somebody in person for an interview, if it's a phone interview, if it's a video Zoom meeting, whatever it may be, always be on time. I mean, even with Marie, we logged on 15 minutes early because I wanted to make sure that I was able to share my screen and everything like looked normal, and I felt comfortable and confident going into it before all of you joined, just to make sure that we were fully prepared and I was ready to go. I always recommend, even if you're in a waiting room, whether it's again on site or virtually, be at least 5-10 minutes early. You want to make sure that you're not having people waiting around on you. Again, virtual or in person, dress to impress, and just be very mindful of what's in the background. You can blur it out like I did. If you have a dog or a cat, or expect somebody coming, just make sure that you're prepared and expect that anything could happen. So just be ready and know what you're getting yourself into. Always good to be just comfortable, have confident body language. Whenever you're interviewing, like you're able to talk about yourself, you're able to showcase your skill set. So you should be confident in what you're saying. You don't want to be slouched over. You don't want to be fidgeting with your hands in front of your face, or, always just make sure that you're confident in your body language. You're looking people in the eye. Firm hand, if you're in person, hopefully soon one day, get firm handshake, and, just be confident in yourself. One thing I always recommend too, so whenever you're interviewing, hopefully, when you're working with staffing firms, it's a lot easier to know who you're going to be meeting with, a little bit about the person that you'll be speaking with. When you're interviewing on your own and applying to jobs, hopefully you'll get some sort of update of the names, titles of the people that you'll be meeting at the company. I always recommend doing as much research as possible on the company and the individuals that you'll be speaking with. You might find too that you might have random, connections of, whether it's colleagues or, your neighbor might know that person or whoever it is. And it's always good to try to find out like any type of like commonality you have or connection that you might have before going into meeting with someone. And when I say research company too, I've had some people, like, you don't feel like you need to memorize the year they were founded, how many employees that they started with, and you just want to have a good idea of like who they are, what they're about, maybe just interests that they have and different events that they might have been a part of, but don't feel like you're going to go in and get tested on it. You'll want to know the job description and requirements of the role in and out. I always recommend to have notes prepared before you even go in. So if it's something as, if you see like, hey, or not must have, I would say on the skill set section, maybe the requirements, it says like at least, 3 to 5 years. Say you only have 2.5. Don't let that deter you from, applying to that position to begin with, but then also talking about it and selling yourself. Hey, I know that you were looking for, 4 years of experience in XYZ. I'm coming in with, 2.5 years. This is why I think I'm a good fit. And like, really just sell yourself. You'll want to know specifics on just what do they do? What can you bring to the table? How can you make yourself, the top candidate for that position? So it's always good just to kind of have an idea of what you want to talk about going into the interview, and have that notepad ready to address. Like if you get blanked out and you're not sure, or you've lost your train of thought, you'll always have that piece of paper. Kind of, in my opinion, it's like one of my like comfort blankets, where I'd look down and I'm like, okay, lost my train of thought. This is one thing that I wanted to ask. This is one thing that I saw on your website, or the job description that interests me that I want to learn more about. Again, we're all human. Don't feel like you need to have every answer on the spot. Always look down and, compose yourself and figure out what you want to learn from that meeting and go from there. Last, and one of the most important things is always come with questions prepared about the opportunity, about the company, about the person that might be conducting the interview. If you don't have questions, it makes you seem disinterested. It makes you seem unprepared. it's something that I would say, like, even if they've answered all of the questions in your mind, try to come up with something, even that they might have referenced in the interview that you weren't expecting. It makes you stand out a little bit more. I can't tell you how many times whenever we have feedback on people that have interviewed, they'll, how did that interview go? What did you like about the candidate? I've never had anybody complain about saying like, oh, they asked too many questions, or, they asked this and that was strange. It was always like, hey, this person came with really good questions, and it made me think, as, the person interviewing interviewing for the company, that I need to have, just good answers and be prepared, because I need to be able to sell this company and why somebody would want to work for us too. So any questions on that? I think I saw a couple questions come through.
Yes, thank you. So one great question was, can you give us any examples of those types of questions? I know you said to ask the interview questions about themselves, but any good questions just top of mind?
Absolutely. So one question that a lot of people they feel a little uncomfortable asking, but is always say like, hey, what made you interested in me? What made you want to talk to me? Like, so a lot of times that circling back to having a really solid resume, it could be just you're selling yourself on that. So they'll say, oh, well, I saw that you had XYZ as your experience. That was really interesting. So then that allows you again to kind of know that's a selling point. Hey, this is what made them interested in me. Let me highlight more areas on that. So I would say, like, questions about the opportunity. What makes a successful person at your company? Why do you like the company? It's good to ask too, why that person that's sitting there interviewing you, what they like, what brought them there. Because a lot of times you'll, see different things online where, oh, this company is great to work at on Glassdoor, and you can read them, but you don't know who wrote them. So when you ask somebody on the fly, why do you like working there? You're going to get a candid answer and like exactly like make them think like, oh, wow, this is what I love about it to make you more excited. It's good to ask too about just milestones too, right? Like, what makes a successful candidate? How over, I guess, the next few years, like, where do you see the company? Where do you see me in this position? Those questions also will start giving you an idea of career progression. How long have you worked at this company? How long were you in this role? And get a good feel for just, what the company is all about, the culture. And one thing I can do too, whether I send it to you, Marie, or we can send it out, I have a lot of different questions and like tips that we send out to candidates as well that can give you an idea of different questions to ask, how to be prepared, and that kind of stuff too.
That would be amazing, because I told them I'd send them this slide deck, but that would be fantastic to get even more resources for them. So thank you. I'm sure they would really appreciate that. What are your feelings about a job seeker visiting the interviewer's LinkedIn profile before the interview?
100% do it. And I would even do it. Like, there's a section if you're a little uncomfortable about knowing that that you're looking at somebody's profile, knowing that they can see that you can put yourself in. I think there's two different, like, stealth mode, where it'll just say somebody has viewed your LinkedIn profile, or you can. So then it's not showing like, hey, Marie viewed my profile before this meeting, right? Or you can keep it your name. You can do somebody at XYZ company, depending on what your LinkedIn is. I always love, whenever I'm getting ready to do an interview, when I like go on and see people that have viewed, I love when I see that they were researching and looking at me before our call, because it makes me feel like they were even that much more interested in talking to me and kind of getting a feel of who I am before they get on the call.
And is that, they were asking questions about LinkedIn Premium. So if it does come in with LinkedIn Premium, do you recommend using LinkedIn Premium? Like, do you think that it is helpful?
So that's a hard one. LinkedIn I use LinkedIn, a recruiting version of it. The LinkedIn Premium, I think that if you were very active on the job market, I would say it might be worth looking into, like, maybe paying like the monthly, whatever it is. I think it's like maybe you guys all might know better than I, but I think it gives you a little bit more access to certain things. So I don't know. I guess if you're very active, maybe look into doing the premium for a little bit, but I don't think you're going to need it always, because there's a lot of just different functionality that comes with the free version that I don't think that everybody needs to pay tons of money just to have a LinkedIn profile. The more people you connect with and try to start networking with, the more visibility, more exposure you have to being able to connect to other people. So the more people you connect with, that brings you to the second degrees and takes you out of the third degree connection, where then you can start seeing more people in the industry that you can connect with.
These are great answers. Do you believe, let's see down here, that a question like, do you see any gaps in my experience that give you pause in considering me as a candidate that I can further clarify? What do you think of that type of question? As a job seeker.
Yeah, as a job seeker, I think that that's a really good question, because they might just seeing a gap in experience, in their mind, it might be a bigger gap than what it actually is. So, if you have, I'm going to use just another like tech and say that you have exposure to virtualization, for instance. And then in the interviewer's mind, okay, exposure. So you might have been in an environment that touched that, right? But by you asking that, your answer could be like, oh, well, exposure to it in a sense where I have, touched this and I've done this, and you can better explain to your experience with not overselling it on your resume. Like if you're saying that you're not saying that you're, an expert in it, but you at least can talk more in detail about that and let them know that if there is any hesitation, here's why you should have it or why you shouldn't have it.
Okay, so being really transparent is helpful.
Yeah, but I do think that's a really good question to ask.
Yeah, I thought it was too. That was an excellent one. And then the last question on this part, it looks like the last one for here, and this was on the interviewer side. What is your favorite interview question that you really don't see that often?
So that is as me, or like the person interviewing, like what they may ask the candidate.
I believe that's what Margaret meant. Yes.
That's a good one.
You can always think about it and come back.
Yeah, I might have to circle back. Like one I always like, and I know it's a little more difficult, is just when somebody says like, why do you think you would be successful here at this, like, for our company? Because a lot of times it makes people think outside of the box where they're like, okay, in life, like your job isn't what defines you. Like, that's not why you're always going to be successful. So in like those types of questions, it leaves it so open-ended that you can start kind of like thinking about like, oh, this is what I've done in life. This is what I've done in a job, whatever it may be. I'm very big in just more getting personal, not overly, like I would never want to make anybody feel uncomfortable, but I like to know like the real you. So I'm not always the biggest fan of even when other companies do it too, and they ask you, the candidate interview questions like, oh, tell me about a time when this happened and what was the result and what was the action. They're important interview questions, but I like to know a little bit more just about the people in general. All right. So I already hit, excuse me, I've hit on a lot of this, but virtual interviews, I don't think they're going away. I think that even when we get back to just whatever the more normal that, life has in store for us, I think that virtual interviews are still going to be a lot of times maybe like the first round interview. It saves, time, not only for you, the person interviewing, but also you as the interviewer. You don't have to worry about, getting in your car, taking a half day off work if you're employed. But just simple things to always remember. Again, test the technology beforehand. Check background, lighting, just your setup. Make sure there's like nothing that, just wouldn't look very professional. Eliminate distractions. Put your phone on vibrate. If you have a dog, maybe put them upstairs. Log on early. Even on a virtual interview, have your resume in front of you. A lot of times, even though it's your life experience, whenever somebody might ask you, oh, like, what year did you work for this company? And you know, you listed here on your resume, totally okay to pull your resume in front of you and look down and know what they're referencing and have it in front of you just to feel confident in your answer. And again, dress to impress. You know, you're not walking into a building wearing a suit or anything, but you still want to make sure that you're dressed as if you were meeting somebody in person for an interview for the first time. All right. So networking. Let's see. Network. Networking is, this greatly matters too in Pittsburgh. Everybody, it's just, you always find like there's some sort of connection somewhere where, you know, you might know somebody, you might have some sort of connection with somebody that could potentially help you or introduce you to the right people. I will reference back, connect with like-minded people, whether it's job, interest, companies. You can go on to like certain profiles. Again, I'm thinking this is on the regular LinkedIn version as well, but you can see what other individuals might follow, whether it's a company, whether it's different networking groups, or, you know, whatever it may be. You can always look into digging in a little bit deeper to see who you can connect to and talk to. I would go to networking events. I know it's a little bit more difficult, so there's a lot of like the virtual happy hours and things now. So I recommend doing those, but definitely recommend going to the in-person ones once things start opening up. I know obviously Pitt Tech Council does a great job with different ones. There's a lot of other avenues that you can look into, like meetup groups, things of that nature. And then, so keeping a list, what I mean by keeping a list of people in your professional circle, how can you help them? How can they help you? It could be something honestly as simple as, you know, just knowing, kind of having an active handle on like people that are in your network that maybe they just got hired at a new company where you might know somebody that also works there. Introduce the two of them. They can kind of hit things off before they get started. They have more of a common person that they might be able to talk to. Anybody in your network that might have lost a job or is just starting to put feelers out there, help them out, because one day you might be in that stage where, you know, Kelly Fedek works now at whatever company. I can ping her and just say like, hey, what do you know about this? Are they hiring? Just to try to get, in touch with people that have been in your shoes. Everyone's willing to help out everyone. When I loved when I lived in, New York, New Jersey area, but it's very different there. Whenever it was, hey, do you know this person? They didn't care. They wanted as much help as they possibly could get. Whoever could send the best candidate, great. Where in Pittsburgh, it's so much more deeper. Like, if you could help somebody that you know, or if you could, just help somebody locally, that's what it's all about. A very good piece of advice that I still do to this day, keeping in touch with and connecting with past managers, supervisors, leads, coworkers are just important. It could be whether you're using them as a reference or just asking for, their thoughts on the market, what's going on in the industry. If they started at a new company, what they might know about what's going on in the tech market in Pittsburgh. It's just really good to keep those people close. Use them as mentors too. I'm a huge advocate of, I have a ton of mentors that aren't even local that I just reach out to just to pick their brain on. And then what else do we have here? Engage in social media posts, things that you find interesting. Even just when you're looking through your LinkedIn, scrolling through to see what your connections have to say, what some of the articles they might be posting, what they're reading about. It's always good to engage in those posts if you find interest in them. Not only does it give you more visibility, but then you're coming up in other people's feeds where you're saying or seeing and saying what other people are talking about in the tech industry. And just another way to meet people and network with them and just kind of get a feel for what's going on. So any questions, anything that we need to, yeah.
Yep, for dress to impress, what is considered proper for business casual?
Business casual, I would say, for females, I would say like a blouse or like a cardigan, over a shirt. And you can, golf shirts or even like a blazer jacket over it. Business casual is a tough one. I wouldn't recommend if they specifically say business casual, don't feel like you need to wear a suit. But if you want to wear a suit jacket because it makes you more comfortable, more confident, wear whatever, makes you feel good, or whatever makes you feel good. But I would say as long as you're wearing something, you don't have to wear a tie, but like a button up, whatever it may be, I think that would suffice for business casual.
And if I was working for a company and subcontracted to another, can I put both, or is it preferable to put only the one that I had the contract with?
We can use that through with Landis. So we leave it open. I will never tell somebody if you're on a, contracting for us at another company, I would never tell them absolutely do not put that company's name on, your resume on LinkedIn. Because specifically too, if you're saying that you're doing contracting work and somebody says, oh, is it for Landis? Well, yes, Landis is my employer, but I'm doing work at XYZ company. I recommend you putting them both on the resume, because then it's and or LinkedIn, whatever you prefer. It makes it clear of what you're doing, who you're working for, and just then it doesn't come up as a question later on. If you don't want to do that, if you just want to put, like, we have a handful of contractors that are working, they're contracting through Landis, but it says that they're working at our company, our partnering companies, which is perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for now.
Alrighty. So optimizing your online brand. So just with different social media, and there are so many just different areas that you can be a part of. If you want to just have a LinkedIn, or and want to be on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, there are many different ways to network. I would say one thing across the board, no matter what channels that you're on, always be very intentional about what you're sharing. Be very aware of what you're sharing. Know that no matter who you're interviewing with, I can almost guarantee that that person is getting online and they are checking to see just more about you. Anybody that I submit to any of our clients that we work with, they are always saying that they're going on and they're checking other people, like their Facebook accounts, their Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts. So you want to be very conscious about what you're putting out there, because although it's your personal page, it's your personal brand, companies and employers are 100% looking to see and learn more about you. So that is very, very important. And then as before, connect with people, build out your network. The more people that you're connected with, the stronger your network becomes. I'm an open networker for sure. I know some people feel very differently on that. I've been to different classes where, they say only connect with people on LinkedIn that you know or that you've met with in person. I'm the complete opposite of that. I don't believe. I do think you should send a note like, hey, this is Carrie Piper from Landis, would love to connect with you. And leave it at that. If you have a more specific reason why you're connecting, let them know. But I definitely think the more people you're connected with, the better. Of course, as long as it makes sense, why you want them to be in your network. And again, join networking communities. There's a lot of different things. I'm trying to become more active on Twitter. It's not my strong suit whatsoever, but LinkedIn, obviously my number one, and Facebook and Instagram are also, we're starting to post a lot more jobs on the Facebook market, and it's getting a lot more traction. So that's another area for job seekers. You guys definitely want to keep an eye out on positions being posted through there too, whether it's the company site or even connecting with different recruiters. Awesome. Any questions?
It looks like you did a really good job over there in the chat so far. If anyone has any questions specific to them in looking at jobs or employers that are going to be at the hire up tomorrow that you have specific questions about, or specific questions about your resume or your LinkedIn profile, this is a great question to ask them, and Carrie is more than capable of tackling them. Yes, the tell me about yourself question from Dover. Exactly what do you get into there? Do you talk about hobbies? Do you talk about your family? What do you talk about there?
Great question. So I love to learn about, just a people person. I love knowing more about you, what makes you tick, who are you as a person. So when someone's saying, tell me about yourself, if they're leaving it open-ended, I would share as much information as you are comfortable with. So, hey, I'm Carrie Pfeiffer. I've been in the recruiting industry for, 10 plus years. I have 2 kids. I have a 200-pound mastiff dog. Like, I say, get personal. If you feel comfortable to do it, you absolutely don't have to. You will not be judged if you don't. But I think that if you make it more personable, it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable, confident in yourself, because now they know a little bit about you that they didn't just from reading your personal resume, CV, whatever it may be. Your elevator speech.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay, great. Looking for a job whenever you're currently employed. This is coming from Ethan. So I guess 2 sides of that. How can you carefully look for a job without really your employer publicly knowing that you are? Any tips for that?
Definitely. So that is one thing I would say. LinkedIn is your friend, much more so than if you're putting. So when you have a job, and you're looking for a job, I think there's another thing on LinkedIn that's newer, that you can opt to put that you are open for opportunities where not everybody will see it. Like, as a recruiter, having the recruiting version, I can see when people have that they are open. However, if you're working for a company that might have they might have a recruiting team, a talent acquisition team, where they might keep an eye on that. So you do have to be careful. So I would say having your LinkedIn up to date is going to be your number one. If you, again, start getting more active, whether it's just commenting or doing posts or whatever, recruiters and HR will start seeing you a little bit more to kind of like show that interest, where, if Marie posts something about just the job market, it might just make me come to your profile and say, oh, you have a really good background. Let me connect with you. Let me try to get you on a call. And I would say always good to have staffing recruiters like myself and all of our the other companies around here. They're great contacts to have. I always have a good handle on what's going on in the market, what companies are hiring. They can kind of be your personal advocate, where I'm reaching out just saying like, hey, I know you're not aggressively on the market, but take a look at this position. And it just expands your network, and you have a good idea of like what's going on out there. And if you want to take a bite at it, great. If you don't, wait for the next position to come through. But one last thing to that, I have had companies have like, they will go on your Indeeds, on your career builders, and just type in their company name and see what pictures are coming up, and or not pictures, what resumes are coming up. So that you do have to be very careful with that if you're with a company that might have any type of repercussion for that.
Okay, and then what's the timeline? So when you're working with a recruiter and you've gone through the application, and what's the timeline that they should reach out to the recruiter about an application update?
I would say probably, if it's just the application first to hopefully get an interview, I would check in every couple of days. Like, most companies that we work with, they will get back to us within like 24 to 48 hours. And if they don't, a lot of times we as the recruiter need to be on top of them and let them know like, hey, don't forget to look at this resume. So I would say be a little on top of that. And same thing with an interview too. Once you interview, you get on your recruiter. I'm 100% great when people are on my case. If they're like, hey, did you get feedback yet? I'm like, good, because I know you're interested and I want the feedback too. So I would say be as persistent as you feel comfortable doing.
Okay, that's great. So that's not off-putting to you.
No, not at all.
So talking back about that employment gap. So when you're a contractor and the contract ended early, unexpectedly, now you have a short tenures at 2 jobs, which may make future employer uncomfortable. How do you sort of talk about those different time periods?
So if you have short contracts on your resume, I would list them as contracts. So, put software engineer, and then in parentheses, put contract. If it wasn't a contract, I would keep it on there, of course, just to, again, that employment, some companies run the employment verification. So if you're not putting specific things on your resume whenever and there's like different things, there could be awkward questions that come up in the, in that time period when you're hoping for an offer. So I would say, if it's a contract, list contract. If it was just a position that just was not a good fit, the interviewer will ask you about that. Like, hey, what's the deal with, leaving this company only after 2.5 months? Be honest with them. Hey, it wasn't a fit. The culture was it was, toxic, whatever. You don't talk negatively. Try to like have a positive spin to it, but be honest.
Okay, again, so really looking to be transparent and honest. It will probably end you up with the best fit possible in the end. So then talking about that up front, like sort of that short paragraph or that job summary, the elevator pitch section, what are some good things to include there?
So in the skills section, or like talking of like the objective?
I think really sort of, I know a lot of people are starting to use like sort of that job summary at the top, or skill set summary of their resume. I think there.
I always that if you're just posting just a blanketed resume, just like on a job board, if you're not applying to a specific job, I would leave it just very specific, like, well, open-ended, but specific in the sense where, Carrie Pfeiffer, here's my summary, 10 plus years in the recruiting and staffing agency business with, experience in talent acquisition. That, like, just, I would make it short, brief, and to the point. Those are one area too where you can tailor your resume. If you have that and you're applying to whatever, project management job or whatever it is, then make it a little more geared towards the specific position. But I would just use a few things to highlight it, make it maybe 2 sentences, nothing too long and wordy, and then let the resume speak for itself.
Okay, great advice. Okay, yeah, short summary at the top. That is what she was talking about. Okay, I'm just going through some of these. If you've been working for a long time, how far back do you list your job history on your resume? I think you did maybe mention this in the beginning, but some people have been joining as we go.
Yes, so I don't have like a necessarily like a year, this many years or, whatever, but if you have 10, 15 years, like a lot of times, like I think that if it is relevant to what you're applying to, you want to keep it on there. Now, I don't think that if you had, a job in, 1986 to, 1992, if you don't want to put that on there and you want to kind of start like fresh, like, okay, say like 95, 2000 and above, that's perfectly fine. A lot of times we'll see people just put like additional experience requested, like, they'll give it to you if it's requested. But I always look at it that if you have, experience going into like the late 90s, early 2000s, if it's relevant to the job you're applying to, have it on there, because if not, you're underselling yourself.
Okay. In your opinion, should they still apply for a job that's been posted for greater than a week? It sounds like the applications in the first few days are the only ones that may be looked at. Is that accurate?
I don't think that would be accurate. I would say that if it's on there for 2 weeks, apply to it. There, a lot of times, specifically too, I'm sure with a lot of like the bigger companies around here, they get hundreds and thousands of applications. So a recruiter might post a position and then just, a few days later start funneling through things. And, so you won't be overlooked. So I would say apply. If it's on there, if it's an active recruiter, it should still be, if it is an active position and an active recruiter, I would guess that the position should still be open if it's still actively being pushed out online.
Okay. And longer gaps in the resume due specifically to the pandemic. Is there sort of a separate answer for that as far as a gap?
That one, I think we're still trying to figure out. I would say a lot of what I've been seeing I've been absolutely like great with, and like how people are posting it, where they'll just put, layoff due to COVID or whatever it may be. So we all went through just a very terrible, crazy year last year. So I think put it on there if you want. If not, a lot of times, if I see a resume of somebody that has been out of a job since last year, I assume that it's COVID. I'll ask if it is, but you don't have to have it on your resume. But if you want it on there, it's also great.
Carrie, you have done such a great job. If anyone still has a few questions, we do have about 5-6 minutes left. Feel free to put those over in the chat. There's even some thank yous in the chat there, Carrie. It was really helpful, really good advice. If anyone has any questions, feel free to post them.
Yes, this has been awesome. And just so everyone knows too, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to, talk and connect with anybody, job seeker, active, passive, whatever it may be. We do have a booth for tomorrow too, so feel free to drop by there. I'd love to do virtual one-on-ones with people. And I'm happy to have conversations and connect with everybody, even outside of if you can't attend the virtual hire up tomorrow. I would love to talk to anybody that I can.
And also for that hire up tomorrow, just speaking of what Carrie was saying, make sure your resume is in there, even if you can't, go to the full time from 11 to 2, because everyone who has a booth gets to sort through all of those resumes and really take a look at them and reach out to you offline as well. So make sure that is really ready to go. But Carrie, you have been amazing. I will be sending out her slide deck and the other resources she wants to share with us. I'll follow up this session with all of those goodies for you. If we do have a minute or two left, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in. But otherwise, just have a great day and best wishes to all of you tomorrow.